Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started with our prelude music. We're going to start with hymn number 226, People Look East. People look east, the time is near, of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able, trim the hearth and set the table. People look east and sing today, love the guest is on the way. Furrows be glad, the earth is bare, one more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east and sing today, love the guest is on the way. Star, keep the watch when night is dim. One more light the bowl shall brim, shining beyond the frosty weather. Night as sun and moon together. People look east and sing today, love the star is on the way. Number 225, O Come, Emmanuel. O come, Emmanuel, and with your captive children dwell.
Welcome to our service this Sunday, December 1st. It's called the Question Jar. Questions. What kinds of questions? Yes, no questions? How about open-ended questions? How about probing questions? How about baffling existential questions? How about those numerical questions? You know, like if a train leaves Boston at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time and another leaves San Francisco. You know those questions? Well, today we're doing questions where we ask our dear Reverend Alex to answer our pressing questions from his point of view. This should be both interesting and fun. Did you pick up a slip of paper when you came in today? Did they force one on you? Did you get it? Okay. Good. If not, we'll give you one now if you wish. Yeah, Chris has got some and some pencils. Please write your question on the slip. During the offering, the children will collect your slips of paper and put them into the question jar, which is this right here. And Reverend Alex will select some at random to answer for his sermon today. In addition, I added these flowers to the setting table. They're called, as close as I could get to forget-me-nots, which I hoped would help Reverend Alex retrieve resourceful answers from his memory. I'm Ann Stevenson, a member of the Sunday Services Committee, and we're delighted to have you here with us today, whether you're here in person or are streaming from home. We at UUCGT frequently remind ourselves that we are whole, sacred, and worthy individuals, each with our own unique religious backgrounds and family structures. We embrace diversity and welcome you just as you are to our beloved community. If there are visitors here today or people who haven't been here for a long time and you would like to, stand and introduce yourself. Chris will bring a microphone for you to do so. No. Only the good old people brave the snow. Yeah, it makes sense. Today's centering music is Blessings. Is that right? Center music is Blessings. In addition to our Anne Marie Jones, we're fortunate to have guest pianist Fred Shapansky with us today.
We pray for blessings. We pray for peace, comfort for family, protection while we sleep. We pray for healing, for prosperity. We pray for your mighty hand to ease our suffering, and all the while you hear each spoken need. Yet love is way too much to give us lesser things. 'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? And what if trials of this life are your mercies in disguise? We pray for wisdom
your voice to hear. And we cry in anger when we cannot feel you near. We doubt your goodness, we doubt your love, as if every promise from your word is not enough. And all the while you hear each desperate plea, and long that we'd had faith to believe. 'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? And what if trials of this life are your mercies in disguise? When friends betray us, when darkness seems to win, we know the pain reminds this heart that this is not our home. It's not our home. 'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if 1,000 sleepless nights are what it takes to know you're near? And what if trials of this life are your mercies in disguise?
Whoever you are and, whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey, you are welcome here with us this morning. Welcome on this snowy Sunday, those few brave enough to brave the roads and come out and be here, and to all of you online. I'm Reverend Alex, the senior minister here at UUCGT. I use he and him pronouns, and welcome to this time for sacred and curious questions. As Unitarian Universalists, questioning is one of the central parts to who we are and how it is that we search for truth and meaning. I've only done this service a few times before, and this type of service where you all have a chance to ask me a question. I've so far lived to tell the tale, so I'm hopeful that today will be no different. But I also hope that you won't hold back. You'll give me your earnest, hardest questions, and maybe some fun ones too in between. So let's see where all the fun chaos goes. You can never quite know. As we settle into our time together, I invite you to hear these words from the poet Mary Oliver, titled Mysteries, Yes. Truly, we live with mysteries too marvelous to be understood. How grass can be nourishing in the mouths of lambs. How rivers and stones are forever in allegiance with gravity, while we ourselves dream of rising. How two hands touch and the bonds will never be broken. How people come from delight or the scars of damage to the comfort of a poem. Let me keep my distance always from those who think they have the answers. Let me keep company always with those who say, "Look," and laugh in astonishment and bow their heads. Let us come together this morning to do the same, to say, "Look," to laugh a bit, perhaps even finding some reverence in our questioning. Come, let us worship together this morning.
Reverend Alex lights our chalice, adding a bit of a warm glow to our community, let us recite our mission statement, which is printed on the back of your order of service. Oh, I'm sorry. Covenant. Oh,
Do you need those with?
I have them. I hope I have them. Grounded in.
No.
I'm sorry. Somebody gave me the wrong story. All right, I'm ready now. Are you ready now?
So the covenant words.
I have a covenant words. I'm accountable for me. You're accountable for you. In community, we hold each other through joy and conflict. We openly welcome all as we respond to the needs of the world. And now we're going to have a little bit different singing bowl today. That's a wind chime that I decided would be fun so that we could remember the famous words of Bob Dylan, where they are the answers. The answers are blowing in the wind.
Hymn number 226, People Look East.
People look east, the time is near, of the crowning of the year. Make your house fair as you are able, trim the hearth and set the table. People look east, sing today, love the guest is on the way. Furrows be glad, for earth is bare. One more seed is planted there. Give up your strength, the seed to nourish, that in course the flower may flourish. People look east and sing today. Love the rose is on the way. Stars keep the watch when night is dim. One more light the whole shall bring, shining beyond the frosty weather, bright as sun and moon together. People look east and sing today. Love the star is on the way.
I am here. Good morning. Hello, hello. Is it just Ellie this morning? Hi, Ellie. Well, Ellie, you can help me with this morning. How are we doing? Good. All right. Ellie's going to help me make our Advent wreath. We've got a small crowd this morning. Oh, you dropped the order of service. That's all right. So we are going to be celebrating the Advent season the next couple of weeks. And we are entering a season, or we've been in a season of more and more darkness in nature itself, and sometimes in our own lives, I think. But we will be entering the season of Advent. Ellie, do you have an Advent calendar at home?
One that's like animal themed, and then we usually get something either like a Lego one, or there's sometimes this one with chocolate.
Yes, I like the chocolate ones, because you just get a little treat every day.
I usually like break it up into little pieces and put it in my oatmeal.
That sounds delicious. That sounds so good. I want chocolate oatmeal.
It's only like a heart. It's a heart shape. It's like
That's perfect.
but it's still
But it's still a little chocolate chip oatmeal. It sounds great. So Advent is not just about chocolate, and it's not just about Legos, right? Advent in the Christian tradition is about celebrating the coming of Christ. It's about celebrating God's incarnation into the world. So we are going to be celebrating the next couple of weeks the season of Advent. And I'll talk more to the kids about it next week, I guess, because they're not here. But that's okay. But we are going to build our Advent wreath. So Ellie, do you mind helping me with this? So we have 4 candles. And they're going to go in our little candle holders. Nope. They came like that. I appreciate your curiosity. So we have our 4 candles. Do you know what the 4 candles represent? No? Grown-ups? Does anybody know what the 4 candles represent? No? The 4 weeks of Advent. But what do each of them represent? Does anybody know? Love, peace, hope, and joy. Very good. So this morning we are going to light the candle of hope. But first we have to put our wreath together. So, let's scooch our thing over here. Your question's already in the jar. Excellent. All right, so Ellie, will you hand me one of the candles? You can come up here. It's okay. We're just going to arrange them in our wreath. And each week we're going to light another candle. Perfect. Thank you. 2. And on Christmas Eve, we will light one final candle, which we don't have in here yet, but that'll be the Christ candle, and that'll represent God's light coming into the world. So this morning, Ellie, do you want to help me light a candle? All right, pick one. You're okay. You're good. So this morning in the season of Advent, on this first Sunday of Advent, we light the candle of hope.
I kind of need you to blow this out.
Nope, you're good. Thank you, Ellie.
I was making sure it was actually lit.
You did great. Thank you so much. All right, and we are going to sing our children's song.
We are children of the stars, we are children of the earth, we are spinners and weavers in this web of life, and the joy that we weave reaches out beyond the stars and deep within the center of our being. We are children of tomorrow, we are children of our dreams, we are planners and builders in this web of life, and the future that we weave reaches out beyond the stars and deep within the center of our being.
Now it is time for our offering. Please give what you will for this congregation and for those in need in our beloved community. You will note there are 2 sides of the offering baskets, one for our congregation and the other for our community's needs. Place your donation according to your desires. If you are watching from home, you may give in one of the ways described in the slide. You may mail a check, You may visit the website. You may download the Vanco Mobile Faith Engagement app. I think there's another one that's not on there, that is you can make arrangements with your bank to have a monthly donation made to the church. In any event, be sure to choose where you wish your money to go to the congregation or for a community need or a combination. I think it's your turn.
It is our practice as a religious community to set aside time in our service to name and honor the joys and concerns that mark our lives, the milestones and moments of our lived experience. I will be sharing the joys and concerns that have been offered up for us to hold on our hearts today. If you have a joy or concern that's a bit too heavy to share, I invite you to reach out to Reverend Alex or to our congregational care team. And if your joy or concern is still too raw and tender, we invite you to hold it on your heart as you are held in this loving community. None of us are meant to travel life's journey alone. And so now here is what has been shared with our gathered community. From Heather and Michael Wendell, a big joy. Baby Marjorie Gail Wendell was born on November 19th, 2 weeks early, but happy and healthy. The Wendell family is happy and healthy as clams. Marjorie is named in honor of her 2 grandmothers. She was 7 pounds, 14 ounces. Thank you all for the wonderful support. From Veronica and Mark Dragovich, a huge thank you to everyone who pitched in last Sunday to make our annual harvest gathering a wonderful experience. A special thanks to Chris and Rick Walter for showing us the ropes and giving us such good notes to follow for next year. From Ann Swaney, sending strength to my friend Colleen Sweeney, whose son Craig died last week in Florida from cancer and is being buried in a military cemetery there this coming Friday. Still middle-aged and my boy's best babysitter. From me, a joy for Michael Jackson, who is successfully recovering at home from his surgery. Joni reports that he is back to his ornery self. caring prayers for my beloved Rick Walter. He will have surgical procedure this Friday, December 6th, in preparation for radiation later in December. And so now, or let us hold a space now for the joys and concerns on our heart, held in the silence.
Would you join me in singing our song of response, Spirit of Life?
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
All right, the time has come for answering some questions from you. I've got a nice little stack here of some, and still working through some of them since there are plenty that were submitted. Thank you. So we'll just dive on in. And yeah, again, this is my just on-the-spot reflections of these things. The UU minister classic cop-out to any question is to say, I don't know, what do you think? So I'll give you a little bit more than that, but I hope that you always remember that these are just my answers to these questions. Your answers might be different than mine, and that's the beauty of this community, is that we can be different together and still belong to the same place. So with that, I hope you'll have a little bit of mercy for me today, too, and we'll dive on in. Our first question here. Do you think we could have a church cat? Could have a positive effect on any mice seeking a home. Well, those of you that know know me, know that I love cats. I have a beloved cat named Lydia, who's my cat at home, who I've had since I moved here. I'm looking at some of the facilities folks around the room. It seems like we're not totally, opposed to the idea. Doug, what do you think? Could we have a church cat? Oh, some allergies, yeah. So there are some practical considerations, but I suppose this would be one reason, though, is that it could have an effect on the mice. We just need to make sure that they're a proper farm cat, too, maybe, to go after all the cats. One that's also hyperallergenic, so anyway, good question. Here's a question. Do you use like snow, A, like snow, B, like sun, or C, both? Well, let's kind of poll the room. Who likes snow as a UU? All right. Who likes sun as a UU? And now, who likes both? All right. Well, that's a very practical way to answer that, but, nevertheless. So I hope that gets at your question there. All right, here's a heavy-hitting one. Do you pray? If so, how do you do it? How often? And for what motives? Otherwise, do you have a regular mindfulness or meditation practice? If so, what does it look like? Yeah, this is a really good question. So to answer this question, I've really I think since my time of becoming a minister and really delving into different practices and things, I've learned that it's important to have a wide variety of different spiritual practices for myself that ground and sustain me. These things look anywhere from journaling, meditating in the mornings to have that time to myself. It does include a time of prayer. I would say for me, prayer looks quite a bit different than it might to an average, person. The classic model of petitioning for things to happen or asking for things to become yours or things like that, that doesn't really resonate with me. But this idea of we come to our lives at these points where we really just don't have words for what we're experiencing or what we're coming to. We sometimes feel helpless and sometimes, have a need, that we just can't name or we can't express. So I think prayer for me has come to take on more of that tenor. But it does also feel different from meditation. Meditation as a practice itself is one of garnering, present moment consciousness. And in fact might even be a way of not having words, where prayer is maybe attempting to put words to that which is indescribable or something that's really hard for us. So I've actually incorporated these in a couple of different ways. I have a weekly mindfulness practice that I do. Some of you Buddhists in the room know the metta loving kindness practice that you can do, which is where you imagine someone that you unconditionally love. You imagine someone who you're feeling neutral about, maybe somebody at the cashier or the grocery store, or someone that you just kind of casually come into contact with, and then you actually imagine someone that you really struggle to love. And then you wish for them, safety, health, peace, and happiness. So in doing that, I found that that's one way for me to really build on my mindfulness practice. Prayer for me, there is also a time in the week where I actually light candles for folks that I'm caring for that I wish there was more that I could do, to be able to be there. But, I have a time of lighting candles and what I'm calling a form of prayer in that way of lighting a candle and holding space for that, which I don't really have words for, but feels really important. So those practices are some examples of some spiritual practices that I do and kind of where I go. So, I think for me, it's really just about, finding ways to kind of reflect on life, think about the present moment, think about those that I'm caring for, and finding ways to express that in meaningful ways. So I hope that helps you, and maybe that's something that you can kind of explore for yourself. Good question. All right. This is an interesting follow-up to that. When is it difficult for you to be caring toward a person in need of your understanding? Who has struggled with that? Yeah, I think many of us, right? So when is it difficult? Again, I can only answer this for myself. I think we're in such a busy world a lot of the time where there's so much chatter, there's so much going on. For me, it's really hard to be caring and present when I'm feeling either really flustered with things, when I feel like my own needs aren't necessarily being met. That's a big reason. If I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm grumpy about something, that's going to be really hard to show up for somebody that needs you to just be there. And it happens to all of us from time to time. We all have different moments in our lives where we don't measure up to the person we wish we were, and sometimes we show up less than what we're wishing we could. But nevertheless, so I think for us it's a helpful thing to remember. Again, it's kind of that airplane mask rule when you're on the airplane, that you really have to make sure that you take care of your own needs so that you can really show up fully and be understanding. This isn't always easy, and even if all of my needs are met, there are still sometimes challenging conversations or moments that I enter into where my mind's struggling to wander on, oh, what am I going to say next? Or, kind of thinking about that. Sometimes you're in conversations with people, too, who you don't always fully agree with, people that are quite different from you, and so that might also be a bit of a challenge to be present in that situation, too. But I think it's helpful to just remember again, what is the hope that I'm having as I'm entering into this? Am I wanting to be an understanding and kind, compassionate person? If so, then I need to put some of that other stuff behind and just be present. But it also means I need to do the forework, the before work to really take care of myself and show up the best that I can. So that's another thing that I'd invite you to do is as you're attempting to be more understanding and caring, really make sure you're tending to your own needs and things. And I think you'll find that helps you to show up too in other ways. So anyway, that's a good question. Let's see. Here's another heavy hitter. How do you feel God? How can I remain calm as an observer of such heavy times? How can I help bring peace to others who aren't quite receptive to spiritual ways? That's a very important question, I think, for many folks. As we're seeing kind of a landscape shift where folks are leaning more away from traditional religion or religious communities, spiritual communities, there's a growing body of folks. This is a funny pun on the name, but there's a growing body called the religious nuns, and that's N-O-N-E-S, not N-U-N-S. And this is kind of a growing thing where there's something that folks are not finding, at least in recent generations, that other generations have found. But what that means, I don't necessarily think that means that there isn't something to be had or offered in spiritual community. There's something that's different about coming here on Sundays than going to the gym or going to a coffee shop. You can still get those semblances of community, but to be in community with each other and to be on a spiritual journey while doing that, to be invested in a shared, covenant, a shared journey together. This is who we are together. That has a very profound thing. When you join a congregation as members, you're saying, yeah, this is the covenant that I'm also a part of, and these are the people that I'm going to care about, that I'm going to show up for, I'm going to be present to. And that kind of social support, that kind of network of people, that spiritual support is something that's really invaluable that I don't think people always know and understand. And there is a lot of baggage that can come with traditional religion too, for reasons why people are, forget it. I'm not going to go in the door. I'm not going to, show up and be a part of a religious community. My trust has been really broken for so much in seeing the ways that it's worked in the world. Even here locally, we've seen, religion miss the mark, right? So I think that's another piece of this that's hard, is that, sometimes, spiritual communities, religious communities can have some baggage for somebody coming in. But I think that they also have a whole host of things when they're done right, when, there are pieces that work really well with that, when we really show up and care for each other and have ways of widening out our hearts and nurturing compassion and understanding. There's some really powerful, profound things that can happen. And I think that's been a thing that people have said to me a lot is, I was really surprised to just see how much people really care about me or just really are invested and show up and help in the ways they can. So that's at least one angle of that, how can you bring peace to others who maybe aren't even receptive to spiritual ways? Well, part of that is you embodying the peace that you want to bring into the world, right? I think that's a big piece of it, and finding the ways that you can care for yourself and tend to your spirit. And for all of us, there are different answers. Going to church on Sundays isn't the answer for everybody. Some folks want to just go sit out in the woods or want to, just enjoy looking at the falling snow. There are different ways of engaging that I think are relevant to all of us, and we have to find the ways that work for us. But I don't think that stops any of us from bringing a word of peace or offering presence or comfort to somebody who might really need it. So I think remaining calm as an observer of these times, that's a really, to be honest, this is one I'm really struggling with. I think many of us still are. How do I remain calm when it seems like the world is literally on fire? When climate change is running rampant, when there are all these issues of our times that seem to be unresolved, systemic oppressions and racism and other things. So I think part of that is kind of returning to a sense of faith in a way. I'm going to use the word faith to describe kind of this underlying piece that says that we can still make a difference in the world. That is the bedrock for Unitarian Universalists. I think that's the idea, is that even if the world is falling apart and things are on fire, we're the ones that know that we can't leave anything up to just a divine guarantee, wishful thinking. We've got to be the ones to do it. And we have to return to that place of faith that says, yeah, I can make an impact, even if I just, hold the door for somebody or say a kind word. I can't imagine all the far-reaching impacts that will have. But, maybe those are small ways, right, that I can still make this world a bit of a better place. And so I think that's what's definingly different about Unitarian Universalists, is that we really do believe that we are the agents of change that can really show up and do things. It doesn't mean that we think that we can solve it all, but we believe that we're a part of the solution to it. If we have let that part go, and this is all just a passive exercise of coming here on Sunday, saying some nice words together, singing some kumbaya, and moving on, well then, there's something missing. We have to do something about it. That's what being a Unitarian Universalist is all about. So, how do you feel God? That's where we started in this question. I think this is one that, again, I would invite, if God is a term that resonates for you, or even if it's not and you're struggling to resonate with that, I think there's a sense of presence, right, that you can find in your life that, in mindfulness work and just kind of being in this room together. I think that there's maybe something that you might resonate with that you might call God, or something that you might turn to. And I think the feeling of that, for me at least, I'm not going to get this quote right, but the abolitionist Frederick Douglass said something really profound about, the only glimpses of God that I can have in my life are really from seeing how people live these out in their lives. And I'll have to find that and share it with you because it's a brilliant quote. But I think that really resonates for me as the sense that, I think we as one another, showing up and caring for each other in this wider world are the glimpses of God that we can have in our lives that can help us to hold, that sense of faith that things are not all lost. So I hope that offers you a little bit of comfort to whoever asked this question, just to know that you're not alone in holding all of this and feeling all of this and wondering if it's going to be okay. And I think we're all on this journey together, and we have something unique and powerful that this world still needs, which is community and love and acceptance. So anyway, that was a multifaceted one, but I hope I got at least something good for you in there. All right. What is the most existential or profound question you feel you've answered in your studies as a or to be a reverend? What is the most existential or profound question? Yeah, I think for Unitarian Universalists, there's an interesting thread here where in many other traditions, there's kind of an answer for why things just happen. Oh, well, that's just up to God's will. It's just the way it is. I think for me, that question of, that classic question, it calls to mind, at least for me, that question of, why do bad things happen to good people? Why do some things happen just in general in this world? So in some traditions, when you might be counseling somebody in the midst of great grief or loss, it might be an easy thing to say, well, it's all going to work out. It's all just, a part of this greater plan. I personally think and feel that sometimes things don't happen for any grand reason. I've counseled people that are in situations where I don't think that there's an overarching reason as to why they are suffering necessarily. Like some things are just there, they happen. Why should a child die early because of an illness? Why is that something that happens in our world? So it's getting at kind of an overall question for me around that. I think that's been one of the parts that I've been curious about is what does Unitarian Universalism have to say to things like that? Why do things happen? And I think the truthful, honest answer for me is that we don't really know why these things happen, but they do. And in the midst of that, we don't have to just throw our hands up and say, well, that's it. We have all the more obligation then to really care for one another and show up in the ways that we can, the things that we really can do. But I think that's probably one of the most existential questions that I've really wrestled with is, why do these things happen? I've heard classic stories of ministers, too, that, who are in a particular tradition, rooted in a very, rigid sense of theology or understanding, when they start to come into contact or come into presence with moments like this that are really kind of world-shattering, their sense of faith really falters. I think Unitarian Universalists have a bit of a strength in this arena because we start with questions rather than starting with answers. And so I think that's something that each of us has to find answers for in our own lives is what is it that, how do I make sense of my own life's journey and meaning when things just happen and I sometimes don't feel like I always know why. So anyway, I hope that answers the question for whoever answered that. I think for me, it's that question of why do bad things happen? And we don't always know, but we know that we have to show up and be there for each other. So, do you have any more for me? All right, whipping through these guys. You gotta write some more. How can we balance the need for justice with the very human and common desire for revenge/punishment? Wow, heavy hitters today. So how can we balance the need for justice with the very human and common desire for revenge and punishment? Where I go to thinking about this is, I think, different models for what justice looks like, right? Like, I think some very classic models for justice revolve around this idea of, you commit this crime, there's this grand punishment, this, form of atonement that must be made, that must, some debt to be settled. This is actually a very classic theology kind of thing, too, if you think about it. This idea that, there's something that happens that needs to be, essentially there's some kind of punishment that must be, that's what's definingly different about Unitarian Universalism, is that we don't have a theology of this eternal punishment or, hell or, something like that in the afterlife. But yeah, so I think where I go with this is thinking about different models than what we've had with justice, or even different theologies of thinking about justice. And one of these models that I've heard, maybe some of you have heard too, is around this notion of restorative justice. What does justice look like if we can actually not just punish somebody for doing wrong, but actually restore community, relationship, covenant, restore, even help somebody to develop and become their best self, and also tend to the wounds that I have in a holistic way. Restorative justice is a model that folks are starting to really look at as a possible way forward of really reforming our current justice system that tends more toward very punitive things. If you do this, you're caught up in the system, and this is the punishment. But then the other part of this question is, how do you temper that with the desire for revenge and punishment? I think that's a very human instinct of ours, is to say, well, I was wronged, or there's something really wrong out there. I want to make sure that somebody pays, or I want to make sure that there's something that happens, right? I can't answer this for each of you in terms of the personal feelings that you have around this, but I think, again, it's to think about the paradigm of what is the world that we're trying to build. Is it one where there's always going to be this debt that is, back? Two wrongs don't make a right is kind of one of those adages that are said, but it's kind of true, right? If you are being punished for something that was wrong, does that really resolve or restore what was originally done? Was community restored? Does that replace, some of the pieces that were lost? So I think that's maybe one way to think about this, is thinking about a more holistic restorative picture for justice. What does a restored relationship, community, what does that look like for us that are trying to build this better world together? I think restorative justice is a paradigm that offers quite a bit of a different emphasis, rather than on punishment, about restoring community. So anyway, good question. All right, here's a very honest one. Is it just me, or does evil seem to be winning against good these days? How do we keep hope in our hearts? This is, again, a very, very relevant question for many of us. It certainly, in many respects, it seems like what we might call evil is kind of at work, and there are different ways that this is showing up, and certainly some things that are happening that are not as in alignment with our values as we hope. Evil for me is a very complex topic too. I should add that with the existential topics, and maybe you've wrestled with this too yourselves. What does true evil look like is a deep question. That kind of thought question around, there are things that are maybe objectively bad, but then there are also some things that maybe look differently depending on the situation. If someone steals a loaf of bread to feed their children, are they evil? Or do they just need to provide and eat, right? I've kind of struggled a lot to have a sense of real, true, categorical evil on all levels. I do have a sense of what that looks like for me, at this point. There are some things that I think are just evil. I struggle to see people kind of as just outright evil. I think that's another tenet of liberal religion that is just a foundationally different thing, believing that people are good and we're trying our best to live good lives. I think what's helpful to remember is that, there's a famous quote from the Reverend Theodore Parker that you might know from Martin Luther King Jr. He paraphrased this quote. Theodore Parker was a Unitarian minister that Dr. King felt really inspired by, who essentially, the paraphrased version is, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. And so I think that's a helpful thing to remember, is that sometimes that arc is not bending as much as we hope it will, and indeed sometimes it feels like it's bending in a different direction. I really do believe, though, that in the overall grand scheme of things, there is that bending toward justice. And I think what's helpful to remember is that, yeah, there might be days, there might be times, years, where it feels like we're not making as much progress as we hope, where we're even maybe going a little bit backward. But, I have to firmly believe that love wins over death every time. That's my personal sense of things. That's where I rest on faith, that love wins over death every time. And I just have to believe that. So I invite you to believe that too, in the ways that you can, whatever terms make sense for you. But I think that's how we can kind of keep hope in our hearts, is remembering that, again, the arc is long. It may be a while before we see the change we're hoping to see in the world, but we also can't give up the sense that we can be ones to bend that arc ourselves. We all have to do our part in doing that. So thank you. All right. What is your love language? Acts of service, words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, gifts. Who's familiar with love languages? Have you heard of that before? All right, so those of you that might be a little newer to this, it's this idea that there are different ways that we like appreciation, we like affection, we like recognition shown to us. So I think answering this for me personally, I think for me, the words of affirmation are huge. I don't know how many of you are really resonating with that, hearing words of affirmation about, yourself, somebody saying, I love you to you, or, giving you a compliment or things like that. That's something that really means a lot to me personally. Acts of service also, for me, it's such a blessing to have a husband that does so much around the house. And so, coming home to a clean house is a blessing that I just, man, it's incredible. But, those types of acts of service really say a lot too. The I love you and that. Quality times too. I'm not a big gift person. People really are really generous here and have given me a lot of really sweet gifts. That's not necessarily the primary way that I'm very grateful and appreciative for all of it, but I don't expect that or anything like that. I think for me, it's probably words of affirmation, quality time, and acts of service that really resonate with me. Those of you that are interested in this, seriously look into the love languages. I think it's really helpful and revealing for all sorts of relationships, not just romantic ones, but the ways that we show up and offer our best presence and care for those that we love. It's something that you should really look at. So we're down to our last two. What is the best path towards inspiring spiritual acceptance over dogma? Wow, yeah. This is a really, really good question. I don't know about the best path toward inspiring spiritual acceptance over dogma, but I do think one of the really profound ways that we can kind of move things in that direction is really around continuing to ask questions, to critically think, to pose honest and earnest questions too, to not have that set of beliefs that's just there and unquestioned. You're not going to get that here. In a Unitarian Universalist congregation, that sense that here it is, that's in the box of what is to believe, and these are the things that we're just not going to question and talk about. So I think that itself is a pretty radical and countercultural thing, not just for congregational community, but also all sorts of social ramifications that come with that. I think spiritual acceptance comes from a place of acknowledging complexity. If I'm going to accept that there is difference in the world, that I'm not the only one that has all the answers, that, wow, there are all these other world traditions out there that have a lot to say, that comes from a place of needing to acknowledge that I'm not the only one with the truth here. So I think it comes rooted from a place of complexity. I think this is the inevitability overall, that the world is going to continue to get more complex. The belief systems that have been a part of our lives and traditions are going to have to adapt and grow. I actually think Unitarian Universalism is one of those faiths that is endeavoring to figure this out. How do we, as a group of people, all come together in this big congregation, even though we have very different personal beliefs and outlooks? What are the things that we really do all unite around? Well, having those set of values that we all decide, these are the things that we want to see more of in the world. I think Unitarian Universalism offers a model of that by having kind of a place where you can ask questions, where you can encounter a neighbor who is different from you, a friend that you've made who is different from you, who believes different from you, who uses different spiritual language than you do. You might remember that sermon we did on speaking in tongues, right? That piece on there being different spiritual practices, a part of our community that we may not necessarily share. So I think maybe that would be my answer toward, I think it requires us to continue asking earnest questions and to hold space for that and to really kind of nurture that. There are places where you can't ask honest questions and you can't ask and say, well, I don't know about that. Can you explain more? Maybe you've even had experiences being a part of other churches or other traditions where that wasn't encouraged, or even your own family, right, where these are just the truths and I say so. I think that's the thing, is to continue asking questions and holding space for that. I really do think that that's not only countercultural, but I think that moves the needle toward complexity and diversity and inclusion each time we do it, and saying, what about that? I don't understand that. The world looks different to me. This is how I see it. All right, here's our last question. I know why we consider ourselves the dominant species despite our hate, decimating the earth, etc. What do you think? I know why we consider ourselves the dominant species despite war, hate, and decimating the earth. Got it. So I think this is asking, why are we the dominant species? I'm not quite sure what the question is here. What do you think? Well, I think humans have gotten into a lot of trouble thinking that they are the dominant species. I think humans continue to get into that trouble, right, is thinking that we're the ones that, this whole earth is just ours to exploit, to pillage, to reap. I think it's rooted in so many things, unbridled capitalism, materialism, all sorts of things like that, where we're ending up in the situation where we're at, where some of our limited, finite, resources that could be renewable, some of which could be really renewable, but there's, a lot that I think is being threatened because we have a very consumerist outlook toward the earth. This idea of, well, the earth is ours to just do what we will, and, how do I turn a quick profit? How do I make the most money I can in the shortest amount of time? And, human beings are notoriously good at not thinking about the long term either. We're so good at short-term, planning and thinking, but responding to bigger questions we're notoriously terrible at. It's not always funny either. It's actually kind of sad because we're at a point now of really, needing to answer some of these questions. So I think that's my honest attempt on answering this, is just to say, I think we've gotten into a lot of trouble kind of from that paradigm of, this is the earth, this is the bounty that we are entitled to do whatever we will with. Instead, I think it does come down to reframing how we think about life and our place in it. If we come from a place of stewardship, of caring for the earth, of seeing ourselves as a part of it, not as this individual separate thing from nature, but a part of nature, I think that has ramifications that totally shift the dynamic. This isn't a garden to exploit, but to preserve and defend and protect and grow. So I think that's maybe one thing that we're really going to have to answer for ourselves coming up is, we've got some problems where we're beyond the point of no return. So what does this look like in not only minimizing the harm, but how can we shift our ways of being moving forward so we don't continue to create these problems and this kind of impact where, humanity is just, exploiting and using a lot of the natural resources in ways that, we're really into some serious trouble. So anyway, I offer that as a possible answer. I think we're at the end of our questions. And we're at 11:30. Wow, time flies when you're up here having fun. Well, if I didn't get to your question, I will save them all. I do use these for sermon fodder every now and then, go through and see if there are some good themes here. But thank you for your generosity and questions. I hope you got something that I shared and something that you're leaving with. Would you now join me for a quick moment of stillness as we just kind of center ourselves again? Thank you.
Would you please rise in body or in spirit and join us in singing hymn number 225, O Come, Emmanuel.
as Reverend Alex releases our flame and we go our separate ways today, as we remember to answer our own questions and to answer our own callings in the most ethical way we can find in our hearts.
And it smells a little bit like birthday candles up here. I just have some quick announcements for all of you while we're gathered. There's a documentary film being proposed by Mark and Veronica Dragovich following the lives and lived experiences of LGBTQ plus folks. And it's titled The Courage to Be. There's an announcement that went out in the Flash this week. They've also got some flyers with some information on it. So if you're interested in helping to do this project, they're looking for some funding to be able to apply for a grant to be able to make this documentary a reality. And there's a thread there of having Unitarian Universalist values show up in it as well. So if you're interested in that, check out the latest Flash. Mark is also over there by the door. He can answer any questions for you if you're interested. There's also a special Tuesday evening Taizé singing and prayer this Tuesday, 6 to 6:30 here in our sanctuary with Mr. Fred. This is a beloved tradition that they've carried at St. Francis for many years. We're going to be able to host that here and offer that to the community. So you're welcome to participate and be a part of that this Tuesday, 6 to 6:30 in our sanctuary. The last announcement I have is this Saturday, December 7th, myself and Reverend Alice from the UU congregation in Petoskey, we're teaming up for a card writing Zoom session from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're writing holiday cards for incarcerated Unitarian Universalists, so UUs that are incarcerated who might just need a little bit of a note of joy, of levity, of hope in this holiday season. They make it really easy. They have a whole template for a card that you can fill out with just a simple note. We can give you all the further instructions for that, but we're having a Zoom card writing session this Saturday, 11 to 1 on Zoom. Come show up for some nice holiday music as we just kind of write and join those friends of ours up in Petoskey in doing some good. So if you're interested, check the Flash or let me know, and we can get you hooked up with the link. All right, now I'd invite you. Oh, do you have another announcement?
So if you brought in a photograph of one of your, somebody you wanted to memorialize for the Day of the Dead, the photographs are now in the Lost and Found, so please come claim your photos.
Thank you. Yeah, make sure if you haven't yet picked up your loved one that you brought for our community altar last month, make sure that you go find them. They're lost right now, and we want to make sure they get back home. So would you please now rise and join hands? If you're near someone, you can also do an air five. Those of you online are also invited to outstretch your hands. This is the gesture, too, of please don't touch me. Let's respect that. And in the spirit of covenant, community, and commitment, and in the spirit of our deepest questions, may we be made ready to serve one another and create the world we so desperately dream of. Go in peace, pass a five or a squeeze. Happy Sunday.